Pacifism, the principled opposition to war and violence as a means of settling disputes. Pacifism may entail the belief that the waging of war by a state and the participation in war by an individual is absolutely wrong under any circumstances. This means that pacifists won't fight in wars, despite it being utopian philosophical dream, and everyone knowing that is the best choice. Others might laugh at them or perhaps even ridicule them for their ways, for they think that their non-violent ways are chosen because of a lack of the power to do harm. That, however, is a mistake. But don't worry, they won't make another one, cause it's the last one they'll ever make. Cause in today's challenge I am going to show them how wrong they are. I am going to show them the superiority of pacifism, or they will die trying. So the rules for the challenge: I can't attack ever. As you can see, I have removed the attack bindings from my buttons. It is not an option I have. My hands are rated N for nobody. This is in hardcore mode, so if I die, I die. First up, I go ahead and create our young warrior of peace, and wait a minute, what is up with that spelling? Oh, for fuck's sake, I spelled the name wrong. Well, that is just on purpose. A great showcase on how much I prepare for these runs. So the run starts, and the first thing I need to do is find some way to convince everyone of the power of pacifism, which is showcased by immediately being out of breath and stamina because of all the casual hunger striking. I decided that the best way to do this is by getting a chipped skull from a chest, so I went looking for one in someone's home that got abandoned in the coal plains. This took a couple of runs, just a couple though, not like I did this for 40 minutes or anything. But after spending what felt like eternity farming that one chest in the coal plains, a chipped skull finally drops. The nightmare is over, I can get started, so I quickly put it in my helm, only to realize that the damage to attackers only happens in the shield and not in the helm. Wow, I am really nailing it all in this run so far. Not gonna lie, I almost deleted the character on the spot right then and there. Instead, I decided to meditate on my problem. And I figured out that the root cause here was that I am a moron, which isn't the game's fault. But instead of seeing this as an idiotic decision, I decided to view this as a test of my will, a test of my way of life. So in the end I took a long deep breath and then 5 more, and continued on with the grind. My dedication got rewarded when a rare quilted armor dropped. Usually I adhere to Cardi by dressing myself only in nice and snuggly blankets made locally. But I realized that I had stolen this from a local and it falls within the principle. Also, I was really sick of farming for a chipped skull. Farming for a chipped skull for 2 hours is a 0 out of 10, cause I would rather delete the game than do this again. So what made this quilted armor so special? Is it the beautiful yellow color on top? Is it the life and mana? No, none of those. It is something else. This wonderful piece of gear has the mod attacker takes damage of 1, which makes attackers take 1 damage. I know, right? It's wildly complicated, which is why I'm explaining it. But why is this important? Cause while I am a man of peace, that doesn't mean they should survive. I went deeper into the cold plains and found my first victim, some neighborhood kids and cousin It, who, after a deep philosophical debate, decided to join my cause by dying out of nowhere. I had nothing to do with it, so my principles are intact. I wish the little kids wouldn't run away so much though. It's much more work to get what I want this way. It's a good thing I found more of them, cause just a few minutes later I got my first level up. There aren't any skills I want yet, I'm going to need level 6 for that. But at least we are off to the races. Which means it is time to look for a way to level up some more. Fortunately, local dark hunters in this area are looking for me, but they are a bit too much and end up almost draining everything away from me. Which is a perfect moment to introduce something that is special to my heart. As you all know, I personally function as a bastion of safety protocols, risk avoidance and prosperous long-term decision making. Not a single bad decision has ever been made by me, or in my name. However, despite my best efforts, and definitely not cause I play like a psychopath with no regard for my survival, my life total will get dangerously low quite a few times during this run. Now, I hear you say, you could play like a normal human being. Take your time, be safe, be responsible. But, and hear me out on this, that is boring. I want, no, need to chip away at my lifespan 1 mini heart attack at a time. Why should I live to 100 when I can speedrun life and barely make it to 40 instead thanks to my affinity for safety? Cause I have an admission to make. Absolutely nothing on this world makes me question my celibacy more than seeing my life total as an empty transparent ball. And to keep track of how many times I got close, I made something special, the near-death counter. The principle of the counter is easy. Every time I could have died, I tally up another one on the scoreboard. Yes, gentlemen, and the 1.2% gentlewoman of exquisite taste that watch this channel. This was that kind of run. Anyway, back to the business at hand. My salt marsh was currently still stuck in the cold plains, with the only highlight of this early part of my path to everyone else's redemption being almost getting my deeds of valor screen barely even into the stony fields. Figuring the stony fields were too dangerous, I decided to push on towards the underground passage, cause nothing could go wrong that way. I tried to approach everyone in the passage with open dialogue and thoughts of reconciliation. However, the demons in here were having none of that. So I was forced back into the open fields where I convinced some of the local neighborhood kids to spank me as much as all of us liked until they dropped dead before finally hitting the glorious level of 6. Why is 6 glorious, you might ask? Well, let me explain. At level 6 the thorns skill unlocks, which is going to be the backbone of this run. So what does it do? Thorns makes it so that every time a monster slaps me, the damage they dealt gets reflected back. Well, that sounds terrible. Why would you ever use that? Cause it reflects it back at 250%. Allow me to demonstrate. This is the last of the local kids left alive. At this point he is filled with rage because he saw all of his friends suffer and die in front of his very eyes. And look at him now, just like that he isn't angry anymore. Instead, now he has been converted to pacifism. With his chakra fully cleansed, he has voluntarily decided to never act out aggressively against anyone ever again. A clean win for pacifism if I ever saw one. And that, my friends, is why Thorns is good. With our very convincing new arguments, it is time to go and have some hard, good faith discussions about how everyone is wrong and I am right. Things start off with a couple of near-death moments while I stand in a door opening. A long time ago I spoke about how great Thorns is. However, it does have a downside. It doesn't work against ranged attacks. To showcase this, I decide to ask the Tainted in the Cathedral for their help. As you can tell, they are throwing giant balls of lightning at me and they aren't dying cause of Thorns. For now I can just run along towards the catacombs, but this will be a problem later on in the run. But that is a problem for future me. In the catacombs level 2 I get a couple of nice little packs of the spiders as they try to break my celibacy. However, I will have none of that. As long as you're not family, my purity is sacred. One of the spiders turns out to be an itsy bitsy smarter than the others. It actually decides on peace and walks away. However, I need to make sure he gets the message and chase him down until I can tell he gets it. I decide to shorten my lifespan by years in the catacombs level 4. The zombies agree that I should not be existing and slap my life total around just the way I like it, while the near death counter gets to go absolutely hog wild during the entire rest of the catacombs. Andariel drops me a chipped skull. This time I even managed to put it in a shield. At the start of Act 2, I felt like we haven't seen the near death counter in a long while. It's been almost a whole scene after all, so I decide to tick it up a few more times by running around some slingers. In the halls of the dead, I go and pick up the Heradric cube. I also dip to 93 life while doing so, but does that even count? Sure, let's count it, why not? In Act 2, I'm keeping a close eye on the vendors, cause they are where my next gear upgrades are going to be. I was using equipment that has damage to attackers. In Act 2, something else unlocks, which will be the backbone of the build. 5% chance to cast Frozen Nova does not look very impressive, but you can get this mod on every single gear slot if you would like it. But even a single instance of this allows you to get some very consistent crowd control, which doesn't make things safe or anything. After all, most monsters aren't convinced of how wrong they are just yet. In the Claw Viper Temple, some strong opinions fly around, but I do end up convincing everyone of just how wrong they are. To celebrate winning the argument, I decide to borrow their sacred amulet, cause there can be only one way of thinking, and it is mine. My prayers are finally answered in the Palace Cellar level 3. In here I encounter some true pacifists. No one is attacking anyone. I try taunting them to check their resolve, but they pass my test, and I move on to convince other people. In the Arcane Sanctuary, a problem occurs. The summoner does not do any physical attacks, meaning I can't use thorns on him. I gave it a second to try and use Frost Nova, but decided against it. The Duriel fight was something. Duriel is known for pimp slapping people really hard, which is exactly how we like it. The near death counter does need to get bumped up a few times, but Duriel ends up going down to a weird case of the stop hitting yourselves. The spider forest starts off with the thorned hulks granting me what I desire most, a transparent health pool. Intensely aroused, but with a few more years shaven off my life, my salt marsh continues on into the forest. One of the Cloud Stalkers ends up dropping me my first endgame piece of gear, a chance to cast Nova Ring. I know this looks like garbage, but hear me out. Level 3 Nova deals 13 to 36 damage, allowing me to end every argument with a shocking revelation. I gather as many of these type of items as I can, with chance to proc Nova being the best of them, but you always want at least one to have chance to give Frost Nova for the crowd control. Charge Bolt isn't as strong, but Cardi does not allow you to be picky about your your clothes. No matter what you get, you have to pretend to be happy with it. At this point of the run, even getting down to low triple digits health doesn't start the adrenaline anymore. The near death counter is looking hungry, but we have to disappoint it as we pick up the Jade figurine and Kalim's brain with our life total much more intact than we like. We dive deeper into the forest, desperately begging everyone to give in to our degenerate desires. But our reputation precedes us and the locals just run away from us, afraid from all the pacifism we are going to spread. My stream's chat has convinced me that being in double digits HP gives you 10% extra experience. To test this thesis, I run into the next group of monsters with complete disregard for my own life. Things are looking good, but much more testing will be needed. However, that will have to wait. Cause ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to my first true prodigy. Behold Rod White. Rod White is a true fire starter. The flame of pacifism burns deep inside him. He smacks none of the bitches up. Just like me, his hands are rated N for no one. His normal name is Rod White, but he is deserving of a new title. One that is far more enlightened and beckons the swan song of peace to all. I crown Rod White as the new Dalai Lama of the Flayer jungle. After celebrating the spreading of the cause, I have to move on. Cause while the forest has a Dalai Lama now, the rest of Sanctuary does not have this luxury just yet. One of the most important philosophies of peace is that while I have succeeded, that isn't enough, others must fail. To make sure of this, I move towards the temples, and as I reach them, it turns out the word is spreading. Hordes of trashers are following my lead in what has become nothing more than a masochistic parade of peace and prosperity, spreading honor and harmony throughout the lands. Not everyone has been convinced yet, so I move on towards the ruined temple, where I get my life saved by a level up. To relax from that moment, I have scheduled a meeting of the minds with the holy priests of Travancore. It had its moments and I feel like I managed to convince everyone, as it seems no one is hostile anymore. Happy with my achievement, I head into the Durance of Hatred, which with a name like that must surely be a product of a twisted mind. Once inside, I get attacked by the raised skeletons of the children of Tristram. But even in death, they are no match for my wits and promptly die again. The council in the Durance level 3 tries to show interest in my way of life, but I just tell them that they should ask their friends upstairs. The Mephisto fight starts out much too softly, with the demon not punching me hard enough to get my kicks in, forcing me to press buttons and run around during the fight, allowing our skinny friend some time to think about his life choices. After all of this, he decides to go and take a nap and we move things along through the demon portal to hell. I start off Act 4 by identifying the crown Mephisto dropped, cause I am the king of peace and need a fitting ornament to make it obvious for everyone. It having a chance to cast Frozen Nova seems very fitting as well. With a new helm I need matching gear, so I decided to go say hello to Mephisto many times over until he dropped me a shield with chance to proc Nova, in the hopes that it would be enough to make me finally leave him alone. After doing some soul searching for the meaning of their life in the plains of despair, it is time for the hardest part of the run, the part I have been fearing since the start of the run. Before we move on, I need to make an announcement. I know this has nothing to do with the story, but I feel like you need to know. I have made a life-changing decision. I have broken my fast, which means my hunger strike has come to an end. Well, why did I do this? I did it to eat exactly 1 carrot, cause after all the fasting that is all my body could handle. This is important to mention because it means that for the first time in my life I have a fiber in my body, which it is going to need, because the Chaos Sanctuary is up next, and the thought of what is in there is making me shit bricks. The Chaos Sanctuary starts off normal enough. The Venom and Doom Lords are no problem, they just run in swinging fists first and asking questions later, which is exactly what we want them to do. However, there is a problem in here, and it is the Oblivion Knights. These assholes do not attack at all, so they don't trigger thorns. Which is fine. The problem is that they also do not trigger the Nova procs on our gear. Without both of those, we are not able to deal them damage in any way, shape or form. For the normal ones, that is annoying but manageable. We can just walk past them and ignore them like our fathers do us. In the back of the Chaos Sanctuary, however, is the one that cannot be ignored. You press the button and out he comes. The one, the only, the biggest problem this entire run will see. It is Lord Desays. This undead is a true believer in pacifism. He does not attack, so he will trigger nothing, which normally would be a good thing. But pacifism is a way of life, not of undead, so he needs to die. Well, again, I decide to run into him, but he does not crack, he has no way to attack me. Normally, this would be the end of the run, there is no way to attack him, and he doesn't believe in my supernova powers. Thanks to my lack of better judgment, I decided to keep running into him, trying to get anything at all to happen, which mostly happens in the form of the second unique guy next to him, really making sure that my death wish gets very close to granted. Finally, I give up when I realize that nothing is working. I am at a loss on what to do. Is this going to be the first true failed run? Is this where it all ends? Am I just washed up from here on out? Is this something I cannot do? Have I finally reached my limits? You will find out all the answers to these questions and more in the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. Wait, no, don't leave, I'm just kidding. I finally decide to take a long hard look at my problem and then I see it. His life total has gone down during the fight, but what caused it? He cannot attack me. I ponder about this longer than I thought about how to spell Gandhi. And that is when I realize. The other monsters are triggering my Nova procs and he took damage from those triggers, which means that they can help me out here. All I need to do is lure as many maniacal demons and undead towards him, run around begging for a spanking and let them have their wicked way with me until Desace dies. I'm not gonna lie, this plan sounds fucking terrible, but if you have a better one, I'm all ears. I hop back into the fight, luring as many angry undead as I can along towards him, and lo and behold, my plan is working. The next 10 minutes are spent with me marching as much as I can. But the damage is too low and I end up running out of monsters to lure to him. This is a big problem, but I know how to fix it. I spend the next hour looking through the NPC's shopping inventory to look for items that trigger Nova. Which turns out to be an hour well spent. Just look at this gear. Everything has chance to proc Nova now. This is it, boys and girls. Peak pacifist performance. This is the optimization of everything we have worked towards over the course of the earlier acts. There is no way for me to get more damage. Either this works or the run dies. There is no in between. We make our way through the Chaos Sanctuary once more, but I encountered yet another true believer of the cause in our way. A Maw Fiend was not moving aside, but they weren't attacking either, so I dubbed them the Dalai Lama of the Hellfire and came back the next day when he was out for groceries, so I could pass on through the fire and the flames to carry on. Making my way into the sanctuary while leaving as many monsters alive as possible, even though I had spent hours luring away the kids all the way back in Act 1. This turned out to be pretty dangerous. I press the doorbell and we dive into insanity once more. It turns out that luring demons and undead into a dark corner is much harder than luring children. Who could have thought that promising gigantic demons a piece of candy is that much harder than promising a bunch of kids? So I spent the next 20 minutes painstakingly trying to lure whoever I could find into this dark unattended corner of the sanctuary to get them to trigger Nova so the Lord Desace can take damage. During the fight, the demons are spinning my head around so much that it can be used for their own personal game of spin the bottle. However, have no fear, my dear viewer, for that is not something to worry about. It is worth it for the cause. After all, my loyal subscribed one. We are a team, together in this non-resistant jihad against the unsubscribed. For they are nothing more than the foul beasts of hell, keeping us away from the complete global saturation of peace, wisdom and nuance. So sacrificing my skull by running into our enemies again and again is all worth it, cause like they say, there is no I in brain damage. They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I say it's just my preferred playstyle. And after 20 minutes of this, I made an important discovery. I found out that if you bash your skull against a wall whilst ignoring the bleeding long enough, the wall will break. After what has been by far the most insane thing I have ever done in this game, it is time to relax. The other monsters in the Chaos Sanctuary have no problem attacking me. Which means it is time to fight the big man himself. I'm sure this will be a hard fight, the game is named after him after all. It was not. This fight was stupidly easy. It was like fighting your little brother, grabbing his arm, slapping him with it and mocking him about how he should stop hitting himself. It takes a few swings, but with Diablo completing his Kurt Cobain percentage speedrun, we can move on to Act 5. Act 5 is the final bastion of survival against my all-encompassing spread of Ahimsa. Their anti-peace stance is a personal affront against my inner being. So help me God, they will be the final ones to comply to my humanitarianism. All shall fall in the name of disarmament. Not a conscious objection shall be spared. I am the twilight of the thunder gods for this mountain, making sure the sun sets on even the last of the evils. Nothing can stop me, except, well, this door. Thanks to the Chaos Sanctuary, I knew just how to get through. I lure over some enslaved to help me proc some Novas and down goes the door. There was a close call in the Ancients' way when some Moon Lords tried explaining to me why they are called Moon Lords and not Cuddle Lords. I didn't really get it, but they aren't complaining anymore, so I'm sure it's fine. The fight with the Ancients mostly goes the way you think it would. Some laughs were had, some crying was done. I almost shit myself because of a couple of near deaths. You know, the usual. What I was not ready for though was the Madog fight. This fight was glorious, and by glorious I mean nail-bitingly boring. On the one hand, I am just standing there doing nothing but drinking potions to keep myself alive. On the other hand, this was 30 and I truly wish I was exaggerating. But yeah, this was 30 minutes of me allowing my life total to go as low as I could possibly get it without hitting certain death before running out of potions. No one had fun here except the near death counter, which got its final feast before the end of the run. The Worldstone Keep and Throne of Destruction weren't too bad. Things were slapping me, I was having fun, they were dying, it was a good time all around. But if by chance, after all of that, you have been wondering how I managed to keep myself alive despite dive bombing myself into the jaws of death every 5 seconds this entire run, what secret technique I am using to make sure my consciousness doesn't get prematurely evicted from my spine, what ancient tradition I am applying to weave the path towards victory, which allows me to crawl through the eye of the needle every single time. Do you want to know? Well, here it is. My secret technique, my confession. There is none. I am just running in and rolling the dice every single time. I approach this run like a psychopath. No safety nets, no survival tools. Just dice roll after dice roll after dice roll. And you know what? Even after admitting all of that, there is no catharsis. There are no more barriers to cross. All I have in common with the uncontrollable and the insane, the vicious and the evil, all the mayhem I have caused and my utter indifference toward it I have now surpassed. My pain is constant and sharp, and I do not hope for a better world for anyone, cause I have made a perfect world. No one is attacking anyone in Sanctuary anymore. My mission is complete, my work is done. Peace has spread throughout the land. That's the end of the video. I want to give a big thank you to all the channel members and Patreons. Please subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you all for the next one.